The 30th of January, 1933. Adolf Hitler is appointed Chancellor of Germany, bringing an end to German democracy. A critical component of the Führer's rise to power is the Sturmabteilung, or the SA, a paramilitary organization associated with the Nazi Party, now counting more than 3 million members. Soon, its leader, Ernst Röhm, will start to demand the removal of German elites from power and their replacement with fanatical Nazis. However, Hitler needs the support of these elites, particularly the military leadership, to consolidate power and ultimately seize the SA as a threat. During the Night of the Long Knives, he purges the SA, effectively ending their political and military power. One of Hitler's closest allies from the German military elite is Werner von Blomberg. Werner von Blomberg was born on the 2nd of September, 1878, to a noble Baltic German family in Stargard, then part of the German Empire. He joined the army in 1897 and attended the Prussian Military Academy in 1904. The same year, he married Charlotte Helmich, and the couple had 5 children. Blomberg graduated from the academy in 1907 and entered the German General Staff in 1908. The First World War began on the 28th of July, 1914, and von Blomberg served on the Western Front. He was promoted to Major on the 22nd of March 1915 and was one of the planners of the division's attack operations during the Battle of Verdun, which was fought from the 21st of February to the 18th of December 1916. It was one of the longest and deadliest battles of the war. The German army attempted an offensive near the French city of Verdun that quickly developed into a stalemate. German forces were subsequently diverted from Verdun when the British launched the Battle of the Somme, and the Battle of Verdun ended in December when the French recaptured the initial German gains. About 300,000 soldiers were killed and many more wounded. Soon after, Blomberg became the first General Staff Officer with the 7th Army, and towards the end of the war, he was awarded the Pour le Mérite in recognition of extraordinary personal achievement. The First World War ended on the 11th of November 1918, and Blomberg continued to play a significant role in the post-war German army. In 1921, he was appointed Chief of Staff of the Stuttgart Army area, and in 1925 he became Chief of Army Training. From the mid-1920s onwards, the German army leaders developed and propagated new social conceptions of a militarist kind, tending towards a fusion of the military and civilian sectors, and ultimately a totalitarian military state. In 1928, Blomberg visited the Soviet Union, where he was much impressed by the high status of the Red Army. The visit confirmed his view that totalitarian power fosters the greatest military power. Blomberg believed the next World War, as the previous one, would become a total war, requiring full mobilization of German society and economy by the state, and that a totalitarian state would best prepare society in peacetime, militarily and economically for war. As most of Nazi Germany's military elite, Blomberg took for granted that, for Germany to achieve the world power that it had unsuccessfully sought in the First World War, would require another war, and such a war would be a total war of a highly mechanized, industrial type. In 1929, Blomberg was appointed military commander in East Prussia, where he started sympathizing with Nazism and cooperated closely with the SA. Blomberg had excellent relations with the SA at this time, which led to the SA serving by 1931 as an unofficial militia backing up the Reichswehr, the German army. Blomberg's interactions with the SA in East Prussia led him to the conclusion that the Nazis made for excellent soldiers, but at the same time, Blomberg saw the SA only as a junior partner to the army and utterly opposed the SA's ambitions to replace the Reichswehr as Germany's main military force. Blomberg, like almost all German generals, envisioned a future Nazi-army relationship where the Nazis would indoctrinate ordinary people with the right sort of ultra-nationalist, militarist values, so that when young German men joined the Reichswehr, they would be already half-converted into soldiers, while at the same time making it clear that control of military matters would rest solely with the generals. On the 30th of January, 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany by the German President, Paul von Hindenburg, and Blomberg was appointed Minister of Defense in Hitler's government. By the autumn of 1933, Blomberg had come into conflict with Ernst Röhm, who made it clear that he wanted to see the SA absorb the Reichswehr. After Adolf Hitler became a chancellor, many political leaders, including President Paul von Hindenburg and Vice-Chancellor Franz von Papen, feared that the SA had become too powerful. While in 1930, the SA had 60,000 members, by April 1934, it was 3 million, which meant that it significantly outnumbered the German army. The SA continued to provide key support to the Nazi regime as it consolidated its power into a dictatorship in 1933. However, the SA leadership had demands to finish the Nazi revolution. Röhm's plan was for the SA to absorb and replace the German military. Hitler saw the independence of the SA and the penchant of its members for street violence as a direct threat to this newly gained political power. This behavior became a source of embarrassment and discomfort for Hitler in his dealings with the traditional German nationalist elites. The SA leadership sought to remove the elites from power and replace them with fanatical Nazis. However, Hitler, Nazi Party leadership, and the leadership of the SS, at the time of formation of the SA, understood that the Nazi regime needed to work with the traditional elites as they would need their support to consolidate power and prepare the nation for a war of expansion. In December 1933, Blomberg made clear to Hitler his displeasure about Röhm being appointed to the cabinet, and in February 1934, when Röhm penned a memo about the SA absorbing the Reichswehr to become the new military force, Blomberg informed Hitler that the army would never accept it under any conditions. In March 1934, Blomberg and Röhm began openly fighting each other at cabinet meetings and exchanging insults and threats. In order to show to Hitler that the Reichswehr was even more loyal and ideologically sound than the SA, Blomberg had all the men considered to be Jews serving in the Reichswehr given an automatic and immediate dishonorable discharge. As a result, 74 soldiers lost their jobs for having Jewish blood. None of the men given dishonorable discharges themselves practiced Judaism, but they were the sons or grandsons of Jews who had converted to Christianity and thus were considered racially Jewish. To demonstrate his loyalty to Hitler, Blomberg ordered every member of the Reichswehr to submit documents to their officers, and that anyone who was a non-Aryan or refused to submit documents would be dishonorably discharged. As a result, dozens of officers, cadets, and non-commissioned officers were dishonorably discharged from the army as well as the navy. As a result of his increasingly heated feud with Röhm, Blomberg warned Hitler that he must curb the ambitions of the SA, or the army would do so itself. Further, Röhm and his top commandants had lost the confidence of other key Nazi leaders, including Hermann Göring, Rudolf Hess, Heinrich Himmler, and Reinhard Heydrich. As early as April 1934, Heinrich Himmler and Reinhard Heydrich began to conspire with Hermann Göring to persuade Hitler to eliminate Röhm. In June 1934, in preparation for the purge known as the Night of the Long Knives, both Himmler and Reinhard Heydrich, chief of the SS Security Service, assembled a dossier of manufactured evidence to suggest that Röhm had been paid 12 million Reichsmarks, 60 million United States dollars in today's value, by the government of France to overthrow Hitler. Leading officers in the SS were shown falsified evidence on the 24th of June, but Röhm planned to use the SA to launch a plot against the government. At Hitler's direction, Hermann Göring, Heinrich Himmler, and Reinhard Heydrich drew up lists of people in and outside the SA to be killed. Meanwhile, President von Hindenburg, the leadership of the Reichswehr, and Hitler's conservative coalition partners, including Vice-Chancellor Franz von Papen, issued warnings about the increasingly radical Nazi regime. If the revolutionary elements of the Nazi regime were not brought under control, the army leaders threatened to overthrow the Hitler government and place the country under martial law. Hitler tasked Himmler and the SS with carrying out the purge. On the 28th of June, Hitler ordered Röhm to assemble the top SA leaders at a Bavarian spa in Bad Wiese. SS units, commanded by Dachau concentration camp commandant Theodor Reicher, surprised the SA leaders on the morning of the 30th of June. They transported them to Munich's Stadelheim prison. There, SS men shot most of the SA leaders. Hitler remained indecisive about Röhm's fate until the 1st of July. On that day, on Hitler's order, Eicher shot Röhm in his cell. The murder of the SA leadership cemented an alliance between Hitler and the German army leadership. In return for Hitler purging the SA and prioritizing the needs of the professional army, Military leaders supported Hitler in August 1934 when he took the last key step toward full dictatorial control. The long-ailing president, Paul von Hindenburg, died on the 2nd of August 1934. With the military's approval, Hitler and his cabinet had prepared for this eventuality. They agreed to abolish the title of president and combine the offices of president and chancellor. Hitler became Führer and Reich Chancellor of the German Reich. On the 19th of August 1934, a plebiscite vote confirmed this change. As Führer, Hitler's authority was supreme in the German state. In emergency situations, his power would extend beyond the laws of the state. After Hindenburg's death, Blomberg personally ordered all soldiers in the army and all sailors in the navy to pledge the oath of allegiance to Adolf Hitler, which was intended to create a personal special bond between Hitler and the military. As a reward, he was given the rank of Field Marshal by Adolf Hitler on the 20th of April 1935, becoming the first to hold this rank in the Third Reich. Some high-ranking officials, especially Hermann Göring and Heinrich Himmler, envied Blomberg in his position as commander-in-chief of the whole Wehrmacht and started to conspire to oust him from power. On the 5th of November 1937, at the conference between the Reich's top military foreign policy leadership, Hitler stated that it was the time for war, or more accurately, wars, as what Hitler envisioned would be a series of localized wars in Central and Eastern Europe in the near future. Hitler argued that because the wars were necessary not only to provide Germany with Lebensraum, meaning living space, but the arms race with France and the United Kingdom made it imperative to act before the Western powers developed an insurmountable lead in the arms race. Blomberg expressed these objections and argued that any German aggression in Eastern Europe was bound to trigger a war against France because of the French alliance system in Eastern Europe, and if a Franco-German war broke out, Britain was almost certain to intervene rather than risk the prospect of France's defeat. Blomberg and several other military officers advised Hitler to wait until Germany had more time to rearm. They did not have any moral objections to Hitler's strategy, with which they basically agreed. Only the question of timing divided them. Göring and Himmler found an opportunity to strike against Blomberg in January 1938, when the 59-year-old general married his second wife, Erna Grün. Blomberg had been a widower since the death of his first wife, Charlotte, in 1932. Grün was a 25-year-old typist and secretary, but the Berlin police had a long criminal file on her and her mother, a former prostitute. Among the reports was information that not only her mother, but Blomberg's wife Erna Grün herself, had been a previously convicted prostitute who had been registered as a prostitute in the files of 7 large German cities. In addition, she had posed for pornographic photos in 1932. Göring attended the wedding as best man to Blomberg, but as soon as he found out about the scandalous past of Blomberg's new wife, he rushed to Hitler to argue Blomberg was unfit to serve as a war minister. Hitler, who was also present at the wedding, ordered Blomberg to annul the marriage to avoid a scandal and to preserve the integrity of the army. Blomberg refused to end his marriage, but when Göring threatened to make public the pasts of Erna Grün and her mother, Blomberg was forced to resign his post to prevent that, which he did officially for health reasons on the 27th of January 1938, the same year his daughter was born. On his departure, Blomberg received a golden handshake of 50,000 Reichsmarks, which was roughly double his previous annual basic salary. Many generals received systematic bribes from Hitler in the form of extra pay, grants, and even gifts of land and estates. Hitler took further advantage of the situation by replacing several generals and ministers with men even more loyal to him, and took more effective de facto control of the Wehrmacht, which de jure he already commanded. Blomberg and his wife, who was 34 years younger than him, went on a honeymoon for a year to the island of Capri. The Nazi regime decided that Blomberg needed to commit suicide to atone for his marriage, and an SS officer was dispatched to Italy, who followed the Blombergs around on their honeymoon and persistently and unsuccessfully tried to force Blomberg to commit suicide. The officer at one point even tried to force a gun into Blomberg's hands, but he declined to end his life. Spending World War II in obscurity, Blomberg was arrested by the Allies in 1945 and later gave evidence at the Nuremberg trials. While he was in detention at Nuremberg, his health declined rapidly. He faced the contempt of his former colleagues and the intention of his young wife to abandon him. In February 1946, he was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. During his final days, his weight decreased significantly, he was depressed, and he spent the final weeks of his life refusing to eat. Werner von Blomberg was 67 years old when he died in Nuremberg on the 13th of March, 1946. There were no tears shed for Werner von Blomberg. Thanks for watching the World History channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.